Hello, welcome to Dracula in Russian Lesson 29. If you have not listened to Lesson 28, please click on it now. If you are new to the channel, please click on Lesson 1.
Remember, C translates to vidit. This is a reminder. Remember into translates to viv. In the next paragraph, we are introducing a new word. The word out translates to ease. She is going through the house and wants to vidit everyone in it, I answered. Oh, очень well, he said. Let her приходить in by all means, but just wait a minute till I tidy up the place. His method of tidying was peculiar. He simply swallowed all the flies and spiders in the box's dough. I could stop him. It was quite evident that he feared or was jealous of some interference. When he had got through his disgusting task, he said cheerfully, "Let the lady приходить in," and sat vniz on the edge of his bed with his head vniz, but with his eyelids raised so that he could vidit her as she entered. For a moment I thought that he might have some homicidal intent. I remembered how quiet he had been just do he attacked me in my own study, and I взял care to stand где I could seize him at один раз if he attempted to deal a spring at her. She came the комната with an easy gracefulness which would at один раз command the respect of любой lunatic. For easiness is one of the qualities mad people most respect. She walked over to him, smiling pleasantly, and held ease her hand. This is a reminder. Remember, no translates to znat. This is a reminder. Remember, C translates to vidit. Good evening, Mr. Renfield, said she. You vidit I znat you, for Dr. Seward has told me of you. He still no immediate reply, but eyed her all over intently with a set frown on his лицо. This смотреть gave способ to one of wonder, which merged in doubt. Then, to my intense astonishment, he said, This is a reminder. Remember, no translates to znat. You're not the girl the doctor wanted to marry, are you? You can't be, you znat, for she's dead. Mrs. Harker smiled sweetly as she replied, Oh no, I have a husband of my own, to whom I was married, though I ever videl Dr. Seward, or he me. I am Mrs. Harker. Then what are you doing here? My husband and I are staying on a visit with Dr. Seward. Then don't stay. This is a reminder. Remember, more translates to bolje. But why not? I thought that this style of conversation might not be pleasant to Mrs. Harker, любой более than it was to me, so I joined in. This is a reminder. Remember, no translates to znat. How did you znat I wanted to marry любой one? His reply was simply contemptuous, given in a pause in which he turned his glaza from Mrs. Harker to me, instantly turning them nazad again. What an asinine question! I don't vidit that at all, Mr. Renfield, said Mrs. Harker, at один раз championing me. He replied to her with as much courtesy and respect as he had shown contempt to me. This is a reminder. Remember our translates to nash. You will, of course, understand, Mrs. Harker, that when a mushima is so loved and hanashed as our host is, everything regarding him is of interest in nash malinki community. Dr. Seward is loved not только by his household and his friends, but even by his patients, kto, being some of them hardly in mental equilibrium, are apt to distort causes and effects. Since I myself have been an inmate of a lunatic asylum, I cannot but notice that the sophistic tendencies of some of its inmates lean towards the errors of non causa and ignoratio elenchi. I positively opened my glaza at this new development. Zdесь was my own pet lunatic, the most pronounced of his type that I had ever met with, talking elemental philosophy and with the manner of a polished gentleman. I wonder if it was Mrs. Harker's presence which had touched some chord in his memory. If this new phase was spontaneous, or in любой способ due to her unconscious influence, she must have some rare gift or power. We continued to talk for some vrema, and seeing that he was seemingly quite reasonable, she ventured, looking at me questioningly as she began, to lead him to his favorite topic. I was snova astonished, for he addressed himself to the question with the impartiality of the completest sanity. He even взял himself as an example when he mentioned certain things. This is a reminder. Remember, out translates to ease. Why, I myself am an instance of a mushima kto had a strange belief. Indeed, it was no wonder that my friends were alarmed and insisted on my being put under control. I used to fancy that life was a positive and perpetual entity, and that by consuming a multitude of live things, no matter как low in the scale of creation, one might indefinitely prolong life. At times I held the belief so strongly that I actually tried to take human life. The doctor's dis will bear me is that on one occasion I tried to kill him for the purpose of strengthening my vital powers by the assimilation with my own body of his life through the medium of his blood, relying, of course, upon the scriptural phrase, "For the blood is the life," though indeed the vendor of a certain nostrum has vulgarized the truism to the очень point of contempt. Isn't that true, doctor? I nodded assent, for I was so amazed that I hardly knew what to either doom it or say. It was hard to imagine that I had seen him eat up his spiders and flies, not 5 minutes do. Looking at my watch, I videl that I dolgen it to the station to meet Van Helsing, so I told Mrs. Harker that it was vreme to leave. She came at a din ras, mostly saying pleasantly to Mr. Renfield, "Goodbye, and I hope I may visit you often, under auspices pleasanter to yourself," to which, to my astonishment, he replied, "Goodbye, my dear. I pray God I may never visit tvoj sweet litso snova. May he bless and keep you." This is a reminder. Remember more translates to Bolia. When I shoal to the station to meet Van Helsing, I left the boys behind me. Bedney Art seemed Bolia cheerful than he has been since Lucy first fell ill, and Quincy is Bolia like his own bright self than he has been for many a long dane. Van Helsing stepped from the carriage with the eager nimbleness of a boy. He videl me at a din ras and rushed up to me, saying, "Ah, Druk John, kak goes all? Well, so, I have been busy, for I prihadid days to stay if need be. All affairs are settled with me, and I have much to tell. Madam Mina is with you?" "Yes, and her so fine husband, and Arthur and my Drug Quincy, they are with you too?" "Good." As I drove to the house, I told him of what had passed, and of cuck my own diary had prihadit to be of some use through Mrs. Harker's suggestion, at which the professor interrupted me. "This is a reminder. Remember now translates to сейчас. This is a reminder. Remember out translates to is. This is a reminder. Remember our translates to nash. This is a reminder. Remember into translates to va. Ah, that wonderful Madam Mina. She has Mushima's brain, a brain that a man dolgen have were he much gifted, and a woman's heart. The Haroshi God fashioned her for a purpose, believe me, when he's dill that so Haroshi combination. Drug John, up to сейчас fortune has dill that woman of help to us. Mostly tonight she must not have to do with this so terrible affair. It is not Haroshi that she run a risk so veliki. We men are determined, nay, are we not pledged? To destroy this monster. But it is no part for a woman. Even if she be not harmed, her heart may fail her in so much and so many horrors, and hereafter she may suffer both in waking from her nerves and in spite from her dreams. And besides, she is young woman and not so long married. There may be other things to doom it of some vreme, if not сейчас. You tell me she has wrote all, then she must consult with us. But tomorrow she say goodbye to this work, and we eat tea alone. I agreed heartily with him, and then I told him what we had found in his absence, that the house which Dracula had bought was the ochi next one to my own. He was amazed, and a veliki concern seemed to prihadit on him. "Oh, that we had known it before," he said, "for then we might have reached him in vreme to save Bedney Lucy. However, the milk that is spilt cries not is afterwards, as you say. We shall not doom it of that, but eat tea on nash sposob to the end." Then he fell of a silence that lasted till we entered my own gateway. "Do we shoal to prepare for dinner," he said to Mrs. Harker. "I am told, Madam Mina, by my Drug John, that you and tvoj husband have put up in exact order all things that have been up to this moment." "Not up to this moment, Professor," she said impulsively, "but up to this morning. This is a reminder. Remember now translates to сейчас. This is a reminder. Remember our translates to nash. But why not up to сейчас? We have seen hitherto kak haroshi light all the malinki things have zdil. We have told nash secrets, and yet no one kto has told is the worse for it." Mrs. Harker began to blush, and taking a paper from her pockets, she said, "Dr. Van Helsing, will you read this and tell me if it must eat tea in? It is my record of today. I too have seen the need of putting vnees at present everything, however trivial, but there is malinki in this except what is personal. Must it eat tea in?" The professor read it over gravely and handed it Nazat, saying, "It need not eat tea in if you do not wish it, but I pray that it may. It может but delit tvoj husband love you the bolea, and all us, tvoj friends, bolea honor you, as well as bolea esteem and love." She взял it Nazad with another blush and a bright smile. "This is a reminder. Remember our translates to nash. And so сейчас, up to this ochin hour, all the records we have are complete and in order. The professor взял away one copy to study после dinner and do nash meeting, which is fixed for 9 o'clock. The rest of us have already read everything, so when we meet in the study, we shall all be informed as to facts, and может arrange nash plan of battle with this terrible and mysterious enemy. Mina Harker's Journal, 30th of September. When we met in Dr. Seward's study 2 hours после dinner, which had been at 6 o'clock, we unconsciously formed a sort of board or committee. Professor Van Helsing взял the head of the table, to which Dr. Seward motioned him as he came the komnata. He сделал me sit next to him on his right and asked me to act as secretary. Jonathan sat next to me. Opposite us were Lord Godalming, Dr. Seward, and Mr. Morris, Lord Godalming being next the professor, and Dr. Seward in the center. The professor said, I may, I suppose, take it that we are all acquainted with the facts that are in these papers. We all expressed assent, and he shol on. This is a reminder. Remember our translates to nash. Then it were I думать хороший that I tell you something of the kind of enemy with which we have to deal. I shall then deal it known to you something of the history of this Mushima, which has been ascertained for me. So we then может discuss как we shall act, and может take nash measure according. This is a reminder. Remember our translates to nash. In the next paragraph, we are introducing a new word. The word what translates to что. There are such beings as vampires. Some of us have evidence that they exist. Even had we not the proof of nash own unhappy experience, the teachings and the records of the past give proof enough for sane peoples. I admit that at the first I was skeptic. Were it not that through long years I have trained myself to keep an open mind, I could not have believed until such very fact thunder on my ear. Vidit, see. I prove. Alas, had I chasen at the first, что now I know, nay, had I even guessed at him, one so precious life had been spared to many of us, kto did love her. But that is gone, and we must so work that other bidny souls perish not, whilst we может save. The Nosferatu do not die like the bee when he sting один раз. He is только stronger, and being stronger, have yet более power to work evil. This vampire which is amongst us is of himself so strong in person as 20 men. He is of cunning bolea than mortal, for his cunning be the growth of ages. He have still the aids of necromancy, which is, as his etymology imply, the divination by the dead, and all the dead that he может приходить nigh to are for him at command. He is brute, and bolea than brute. He is devil and callous, and the heart of him is not. He может, within limitations, appear at will when, and где, and in любой of the forms that are to him. He может, within his range, direct the elements, the storm, the fog, the thunder. He может command all the meaner things, the rat and the owl and the bat, the moth and the fox and the wolf. He может grow and become small, and he может at times vanish and приходить unknown. Как then are we to begin nash strike to destroy him? Как shall we find his где, and having found it, как может we destroy? My friends, this is much. It is a terrible task that we undertake, and there may be consequence to deal it the brave shudder. For if we fail in this nash fight, he must surely win. And then где end we? Life is nothings, I heed him not. But to fail здесь is not mere life or death. It is that we become as him, that we henceforward become foul things of the noche like him, without heart or conscience, preying on the bodies and the souls of those we love best. To us forever are the gates of heaven shut, for kto shall open them to us snova? We tion for all vreme abhorred by all, a blot on the litzo of God's sunshine, an arrow in the side of him kto died for Mushima. But we are litzo to litzo with duty, and in such case must we shrink. For me I say no, but then I am starry, and life, with his sunshine, his fair places, his song of birds, his music and his love, lie far behind. You others are young, some have seen sorrow, but there are fair days yet in store. Что say you? This is a reminder. Remember our translates to nash. This is a reminder. Remember out translates to is. Whilst he was speaking, Jonathan had taken my hand. I feared, oh so much, that the appalling nature of nash danger was overcoming him when I videl his hand stretch ease. But it was life to me to feel its touch, so strong, so self-reliant, so resolute. A brave man's hand может speak for itself. It does not even need a woman's love to hear its music. When the professor had done speaking, my husband looked in my glaza, and I in his. There was no need for speaking between us. I answer for Mina and myself, he said. Count me in, Professor, said Mr. Quincy Morris, laconically as usual. I am with you, said Lord Godalming, for Lucy's sake, if for no other reason. This is a reminder. Remember out translates to ease. This is a reminder. Remember our translates to Nash. Dr. Seward simply nodded. The professor stood up and, postly laying his golden crucifix on the table, held his hand on either side. Ivzal his right hand, and Lord Godalming his left. Jonathan held my right with his left and stretched across to Mr. Morris. So as we all vzal hands, Nash solemn compact was dil. I felt my heart icy cold, but it did not even occur to me to draw Nazad. We resumed Nash places, and Dr. Van Helsing shone on with a sort of cheerfulness which showed that the serious work had begun. It was to be taken as gravely and in as businesslike a sposob as luboy other transaction of life. This is a reminder. Remember what translates to shto. This is a reminder. Remember no translates to znat. This is a reminder. Remember our translates to nash. Well, use not shto we have to contend against, but we too are not without strength. We have on nash side power of combination, a power denied to the vampire kind. We have sources of science. We are free to act and doom it, and the hours of the Dane and the Noch are ours equally. In fact, so far as nash powers extend, they are unfettered, and we are free to use them. We have self-devotion in a cause, and an end to achieve which is not a selfish one. These things are much tact. Now let us vidit kak far the general powers arrayed against us are restrict, and kak the individual cannot. In fine, let us consider the limitations of the vampire in general, and of this one in particular. This is a reminder. Remember our translates to nash. This is a reminder. Remember what translates to shto. This is a reminder. Remember no translates to znat. This is a reminder. Remember out translates to ease. All we have to ati upon are traditions and superstitions. These do not at the first appear much, when the matter is one of life and death, nay of bolia than either life or death. Yet must we be satisfied, in the first place because we have to be, no other means is at nash control, and secondly because, postly all, these things, tradition and superstition, are everything. Does not the belief in vampires rest for others, though not, alas, for us, on them? A year ago, which of us would have received such a possibility in the midst of nash scientific, skeptical, matter-of-fact 19th century? We even scouted a belief that we videl justified under nash ochin glaza. Take it, then, that the vampire, and the belief in his limitations and his cure, rest for the moment on the same base. For let me tell you, he is known everywhere that men have been. In starry Greece, in starry Rome, he flourished in Germany all over, in France, in India, even in the Chernassees, and in China, so far from us in all ways, there even is he, and the peoples fear him at this Dane. He have followed the wake of the berserker Icelander, the devil-begotten Hun, the Slav, the Saxon, the Magyar. So far, then, we have all we may act upon, and let me tell you that ochin much of the beliefs are justified by shto we have seen in nash own so unhappy experience. The vampire live on, and cannot die by mere passing of the vrema. He может flourish, when that he может fatten on the blood of the living. Even bolia, we have seen amongst us that he может even grow younger, that his vital faculties grow strenuous and seem as though they refresh themselves when his special pabulum is plenty. But he cannot flourish without this diet. He eat not as others. Even Drug Jonathan, kto lived with him for weeks, did never vidit him to eat. Never. He throws no shadow. He delit in the mirror no reflect, as Snova Jonathan observe. He has the strength of many of his hand. Witness Snova Jonathan when he shut the dvied against the wolves, and when he help him from the diligence too. He может transform himself to wolf, as we gather from the ship arrival in Whitby, when he tear open the dog. He может be as bat, as Madam Mina videl him on the window at Whitby, and as Drug John videl him fly from this so near house, and as my Drug Quincy videl him at the window of Miss Lucy. He может приходить in mist which he create. That noble ship's captain proved him of this. But from shto we znat, the distance he может делать this mist is limited, and it может только be round himself. He приходить on moonlight rays as elemental dust, as Snova Jonathan videl those sisters in the castle of Dracula. He becomes so small. We ourselves videl Miss Lucy, ere she was at peace, slip through a hairbreadth space at the tomb dvied. He может, When один раз he find his способ приходить из from anything or anything, no matter как close it be bound or even fused up with fire, solder you call it. He может видеть in the dark, no small power this, in a world which is one half shut from the light. Ah, but hear me through. He может do all these things, yet he is not free. Nay, he is even bolее a prisoner than the slave of the galley, than the madman in his cell. He cannot идти где he lists. He, кто is not of nature, has yet to obey some of nature's laws. Why we знать not. He may not enter anywhere at the first, unless there be someone of the household кто bid him to приходить, though afterwards he может приходить as he please. His power ceases, as does that of all evil things at the coming of the Dane. Только at certain times может he have limited freedom,